Captain Daniel Hale was tired. The diplomatic hub orbiting the planet Veronine was loud, bright, and full of strange alien smells. He had been waiting all day for clearance to leave, and now it was almost midnight station time. All he wanted was to get back to his small ship and sleep. A tired-looking alien clerk waved him over to the counter. The clerk's skin was pale green, and his 3 eyes blinked slowly. Routine docking paperwork, the clerk said in a flat voice, sliding a stack of digital pads toward Daniel. Daniel sighed and picked up the stylus. The forms were a mix of human language, galactic standard, and 2 alien dialects he didn't understand. He signed each one without reading closely. It was always the same. Every port had its own useless forms, and they all wanted the same information. One form looked different. It had a golden seal at the top and glowing alien symbols running down the side. Daniel assumed it was some kind of customs declaration. He signed it quickly and handed it back. The alien clerk's lips curled slightly, almost like a smile. Then he pressed a shimmering stamp on the form, sealing it with a faint spark. "Done?" Daniel asked. "Done," the clerk replied, still smiling in a strange way. Daniel grabbed his travel bag and headed toward the docking bay. The corridors were quiet this late. Only a few station workers and security patrols passed by. He reached his ship, the Wayfarer, and keyed in the hatch code. Before he could step inside, his communicator beeped. It was a station priority message. He frowned and opened it. The words appeared in glowing blue text. "Congratulations, Captain Daniel Hale. You have entered into a binding breeding contract with Her Royal Highness Lyra of Zelther. Effective immediately." Daniel stared at the message. He blinked twice, thinking maybe it was a mistake or a bad joke. Breeding contract. What in the galaxy is that supposed to mean? He muttered. Before he could search the station net for answers, heavy footsteps echoed behind him. He turned. 6 armed alien guards were walking down the corridor toward him. Their armor was deep crimson, marked with the royal crest of Zelther. They carried long ceremonial spears with plasma tips. The guards stopped just a few steps away. One of them, a tall female with silver skin and sharp eyes, spoke in a deep voice. "Captain Hale, you will come with us. The princess is expecting you." Daniel raised his hands slowly. "Wait, I think there's been some mistake." "I'm not." But the guards stepped forward. The silver-skinned leader held out a holographic copy of the form he had signed. There it was, his own signature glowing at the bottom, and next to it, alien script that probably said something official. "This is no mistake," the guard said firmly. "By law of the Zelther Empire, this contract is binding. You are now consort to the princess, and your union will ensure the continuation of royal lineage." Daniel's mind raced. He had no idea what a consort even did, and he definitely wasn't planning to continue anyone's lineage. "Look, I just signed some docking forms. I didn't agree to marry anyone," he protested. The guards didn't seem to care. 2 stepped forward and took his arms, guiding him firmly but not roughly. "You will understand everything soon," the silver-skinned leader said. "The princess will explain, but for now, you are under royal protection." They began walking him away from his ship. Daniel glanced back at the Wayfarer, wishing he could just run aboard and fly away. But with 6 armed guards around him, that wasn't going to happen. The corridors felt longer now, the bright station lights almost blinding. Every few minutes they passed curious onlookers, humans, aliens, and strange hybrids, whispering to each other. Some even bowed slightly in his direction, as if he was already part of something important. The guards led him to a private docking platform. A sleek, silver royal shuttle waited with its ramp. Down, it was surrounded by banners bearing the Zelther crest, a stylized dragon wrapped around a star. Daniel's heart sank. This wasn't just a casual misunderstanding. Whatever he had signed was serious, and the whole thing felt like walking into a trap. The leader gestured for him to board. Inside, the shuttle smelled faintly of flowers, and soft music played from hidden speakers. 2 attendants in flowing robes waited, bowing politely. One of them handed Daniel a small silver bracelet. "For the ceremony," the attendant said in a calm voice. "I'm not putting anything on until I know what's going on." Daniel replied. The attendants only smiled, as if they had heard this before. As the shuttle doors closed, Daniel looked out the window. The vast station slowly rotated, its lights twinkling like a city in space. He felt the engines hum as the shuttle detached. The guards sat silently, their eyes fixed on him. No one explained anything. Daniel's mind was a storm of questions. Who was this princess? Why him, and what exactly did a binding breeding contract involve? Far ahead, a massive golden palace ship came into view. It floated in space like a jewel, surrounded by dozens of escort fighters. The sight made Daniel's stomach twist. Somehow, in just a few careless seconds of signing paperwork, he had stepped into something far bigger and far more dangerous than he could have imagined. The royal shuttle glided toward the massive golden palace ship. Its hull shimmered under the light of the nearby star, and intricate alien symbols ran along its sides like glowing tattoos. Daniel sat stiffly in his seat, still wearing the silver bracelet the attendants had insisted he take. The guards had been silent the whole trip, making the air feel heavier. With each passing minute, the shuttle entered a docking bay the size of a small city. Rows of alien soldiers in ornate armor stood in formation, their spears raised in salute. Daniel's stomach tightened. Whatever was about to happen, it wasn't going to be a quick conversation and a sorry for the mix-up. The silver-skinned guard captain stepped forward and gestured for him to follow. They walked down a long ramp into the docking hall, where hundreds of alien eyes turned to watch him. Some faces were curious, others suspicious, and a few looked almost jealous. Music began to play, deep and slow, echoing through the vast chamber like the heartbeat of some ancient creature. At the far end of the hall, two enormous golden doors opened. From within, a tall, elegant figure stepped forward. She was unlike any alien Daniel had seen before. Her skin shimmered faintly, shifting between pale violet and silver as she moved. Long dark hair, streaked with threads of gold, flowed down her back. Her eyes were bright and sharp, the kind that could look straight through a person, and she wore a ceremonial gown that seemed to be made of liquid light. She stopped halfway down the hall, studying Daniel with an expression that was hard to read. There was beauty in her face, but also a quiet steel, the kind of strength that comes from years of duty. When she spoke, her voice was calm but carried a hint of command. "So, you are the human who signed the contract," she said. Daniel straightened his back. "I'm the human who signed some docking forms, that's all," he replied. A faint, almost bitter smile touched her lips. "That is not what the law says, Captain Hale," she answered. The guard captain introduced her formally. "This is Her Royal Highness, Princess Lyra of Zulthar, daughter of the Emperor, keeper of the Starline blood." Lyra's gaze never left Daniel. "You are now my consort by binding law. Your signature is recognized across all royal courts," she said. Daniel shook his head. "There's been a mistake. I don't even know you. And I didn't agree to any." Lyra cut him off with a sharp gesture. "You think I wanted this?" she said, her voice lowering. "My father believes a union between Zulthar and humanity will strengthen our empire. He cares little for my opinion." Her eyes narrowed slightly. "And I suspect you were not told what you were signing." Daniel exhaled. "Finally someone who gets it," he said. "But if neither of us wanted this, we can just cancel it, right?" Lyra's expression darkened. "In my culture, there is no cancellation, only completion or death." The words hit Daniel like cold water. "You've got to be kidding me," he muttered. But Lyra's tone made it clear. She was not joking. The law was absolute, and breaking it carried consequences he didn't even want to imagine. As they began walking together through the palace corridors, Daniel noticed the strange architecture. The walls were lined with tall crystal panels that seemed to hum faintly. Alien servants in flowing garments bowed as they passed. Lyra walked with her head high, every step measured. Daniel followed, feeling like a prisoner on display. They entered a private chamber filled with soft light and the scent of alien flowers. Lyra dismissed the guards with a single word, once. Alone, she turned to him. "There's more you must know," she said. "This contract." "It was not an accident," Daniel frowned. "What do you mean?" Lyra's gaze hardened. "Someone wanted this union to happen. Someone who stands to gain much from our bloodline." Daniel felt a chill run through him. "This is starting to sound less like a mistake and more like a trap," he said. Lyra nodded slowly. "I believe we are both caught in it," she replied. Her eyes flicked toward the bracelet on his wrist. "That is not decoration. It is a marker. Any royal guard can track you anywhere on this ship." Daniel glanced at it, feeling the metal warm slightly against his skin. "Great, so I'm tagged like livestock," he muttered. Lyra's lips twitched, almost amused, but her tone stayed serious. "If you try to run, they will find you, and the law will demand you are brought back, alive or dead." The distant sound of ceremonial drums began to echo through the halls. Lyra looked toward the door, her voice tightening. "They will announce our joining in 1 hour," she said. Daniel's mind spun. He didn't know if he should try to escape, confront whoever set this up, or somehow convince Lyra to work with him. But one thing was clear: if he did nothing, his future would no longer belong to him. And somewhere in the shadows of the Golden Palace, unseen eyes were watching them both, waiting for the plan to unfold. The hour passed faster than Daniel expected. Servants arrived in silence, bringing garments that shimmered like they were woven from starlight. Without asking permission, they began to dress him in layers of gold and silver cloth. Every piece felt heavy, not from weight but from meaning he didn't understand. Lyra stood across the chamber, already dressed in a ceremonial robe that trailed behind her like a river of light. She wore a crown of thin crystal shards that floated just above her head, held in place by invisible energy. Her face was calm, but her eyes carried the same sharpness Daniel had seen earlier. It was the look of someone who knew every word and movement would be judged. 2 alien musicians entered, playing slow notes on instruments that looked like glass spirals. The sound was deep and strange, vibrating through Daniel's bones. Then came the smell, sweet heavy incense that made his head swim. Lyra noticed his unease and spoke softly. "It is the breath of Zelther, a scent burned before all royal ceremonies," she explained. "It sharpens the senses for those born of our world, but for humans, it may cause dizziness." Daniel rubbed his temple. "Perfect, so I'll either pass out or say something stupid," he muttered. Lyra's lips curved faintly, but the smile didn't reach her eyes. They were escorted into a vast hall filled with alien nobles. Some had scaled faces, some had feathers instead of hair, and others looked almost human, until you saw their eyes. Every gaze followed Daniel as he walked beside Lyra toward a raised platform. He could feel the weight of their stares. Some were curious, some hostile, and a few calculating. At the center of the hall was a circular pool of glowing liquid. Daniel hesitated as the guards gestured for him to step closer. Lyra leaned toward him and whispered, "It is called the mirror pool. In our tradition, both partners must touch it together to seal the first stage of the union." Daniel looked at the pool. Its surface rippled, even though there was no wind, and faint images flickered within, shapes of creatures and places he didn't recognize. "Feels like it's staring back at me," he said quietly. "It is," Lyra replied. Without a hint of humor, they placed their hands on the liquid surface. It was warm, almost alive, and it sent a faint pulse up Daniel's arm. Whispers spread through the crowd. Daniel glanced around and caught a few nobles leaning closer to each other, speaking in quick, hushed tones. One word kept repeating, a word he didn't know, but that sounded sharp and dangerous. After the ritual, a long table was brought forward. On it sat plates of alien fruits, glowing drinks, and a strange black orb placed in the center. Lyra explained softly, "The orb is the blood record. It reads the lifeline of both partners and confirms the possibility of offspring." Daniel froze. They're seriously doing a public DNA test? He said under his breath. Yes, Lyra said, her tone dry. It is. Tradition. The orb lit up when Lyra placed her hand on it, sending lines of golden light across its surface. When Daniel's hand touched it, the light shifted, turning into a brilliant white that flashed so brightly the entire hall gasped. A murmur spread instantly. Nobles leaned forward, some smiling in approval, others frowning deeply. Lyra's eyes widened slightly, just for a moment, before she masked her expression. Daniel whispered, "Okay, that looked bad. What does white mean?" Lyra answered without looking at him. "It means the bloodlines are not only compatible, they are perfect. It is." "Rare," he swallowed hard. "That doesn't sound like something that will make my life easier." He muttered. "You are correct," Lyra replied, her voice low. "Now they will never let you go." As the ceremony continued, Daniel noticed one noble in particular, a tall figure with silver hair and a robe lined with deep crimson. The man's eyes followed Daniel with the precision of a hunter watching prey. Lyra caught Daniel's glance and said quietly, "That is High Priest Varen. He controls the Royal Council and many other things." Daniel's unease grew. If this priest was part of the reason for the contract, then the whole thing was more than just politics. Lyra confirmed his suspicion moments later. "There are rumors," she said softly, "that certain factions want to create a hybrid heir, one who could claim both human adaptability and Zelther longevity. They believe such a child would be unstoppable in the galaxy's power struggles." Daniel's jaw tightened. "So basically, I'm not a person to them. I'm just breeding stock." Lyra's expression hardened. "And I am just a vessel in their eyes. That is why I will not let them control either of us." Before Daniel could reply, a sudden chime echoed through the hall. The high priest stood, raising a hand for silence. His voice rang out, deep and commanding. "The first stage is complete. Tomorrow, the binding shall be made unbreakable." Daniel's stomach dropped. Tomorrow, one day before he lost all choice forever. Lyra's eyes met his, a silent agreement passing between them. If they were going to escape this, they would have to act before the next sunset. Far above them, hidden among the crystal rafters, a small, spider-like drone recorded every word and every look they shared, transmitting it to someone watching far away. Asterisk night came to the Golden Palace ship slowly. The endless hum of engines was the only sound. Most of the nobles had left the grand halls, returning to their private chambers. Guards still patrolled in pairs, but their steps echoed lazily, the kind of rhythm that came from believing no one would dare escape. In a dimly lit service corridor, Daniel stood with Lyra. They were both dressed in simple dark clothing taken from the attendant's storage. Lyra's ceremonial crown and gown were gone, replaced by a hooded cloak. Her eyes scanned the shadows, sharp and alert. "This route leads to the skimmer hangar," she whispered. "If we move quickly, we can reach the outer decks before the next patrol sweeps this area." Daniel nodded. "Good. Because I'm not waiting around to find out what binding made unbreakable means," he said. Lyra didn't smile. "It means exactly what you think it does, and worse," she replied. They moved quickly through narrow maintenance corridors. Pipes lined the walls, hissing with steam. Strange alien writing marked the access hatches. Lyra tapped a wall panel and a hidden door slid open, revealing a downward stairwell lit only by faint blue lines. "This is an old passage used by palace staff generations ago," she explained. "They stopped using it after an incident." Daniel raised an eyebrow. "What kind of incident?" Lyra's voice was almost casual, the kind where 3 guards went in and never came out. Daniel stopped mid-step. "You couldn't have told me that before we entered." Lyra smirked faintly. "You would have argued." The stairwell opened into the skimmer hangar. Rows of small, sleek crafts floated above glowing landing pads. Daniel moved toward one with a streamlined silver hull. "Nice ride," he said. Climbing into the cockpit, Lyra quickly joined him, her hands moving over the alien controls with practiced ease. The skimmer hummed to life, rising from the pad. But before they could launch, alarms blared through the hangar. Daniel cursed. How? Did they know? Lyra's jaw tightened. They didn't. Someone told them. Through the open hangar doors, the neon forest stretched out, an alien jungle of massive glowing plants that pulsed with shifting colors. They darted out into the darkness, the palace ship fading behind them. The forest was alive with movement. Huge flowers opened and closed like breathing creatures. Vines shifted as if watching them. Small winged shapes darted between glowing trunks, their eyes reflecting sharp red light as the skimmer weaved between towering bioluminescent trees. Something metallic flashed in the corner of Daniel's vision. He turned just in time to see 3 black needle-shaped ships closing in. They're fast, he said, gripping the controls tighter. Lyra's voice was low. Bounty hunters. The royal court never sends them unless the target is worth a fortune. The first hunter ship fired a net of crackling energy. Daniel swerved sharply, the net missing by inches and slamming into a massive glowing mushroom. The mushroom collapsed, releasing a cloud of glittering spores that clung to the hunters' hulls. One ship spun out of control, but the other 2 kept coming. They're hurting us, Lyra said. Toward the eastern ridge. Daniel glanced at her. What's that? The eastern ridge? Lyra's eyes flickered with unease. Predators, ones even the hunters fear. Branches scraped against the skimmer as Daniel pushed it harder. Suddenly, a shadow moved across their path, huge, multi-legged, and covered in glowing spines. The creature turned its head, revealing rows of jagged teeth. The hunters slowed instantly, keeping their distance. They won't follow us in there, Lyra said, but if we go too deep, we might not come out. Daniel's grip tightened. On the controls. Guess we'll have to risk it, he muttered. The skimmer shot forward, weaving through the twisted glowing trunks. The predator moved alongside them for several seconds before fading back into the jungle shadows. Daniel didn't know if that meant safety or something worse. They landed in a hidden clearing surrounded by thick vines. The air was heavy with glowing pollen that made every breath feel strange. Daniel stepped out, scanning the trees. Lyra joined him, her cloak brushing the glowing grass. For now, we are safe, she said quietly. But the hunters will wait, and they are patient. Daniel frowned. Then we find a way to make them give up. Lyra's gaze met his. That will not happen, Captain. Not until they get what they want. You. A faint noise came from above. Daniel looked up and froze. Perched on a massive branch was a small, spider-like drone, the same kind that had been watching them in the palace. It blinked once, then vanished into the dark. Lyra's voice was tight. They already know where we are. Asterisk. The clearing was silent except for the soft hum of the skimmer cooling down. Daniel scanned the dark tree line, every muscle tight. The spider-like drone had vanished, but he knew it wasn't gone. Things like that didn't just disappear. They reported. Lyra moved slowly, crouching near the glowing grass she touched the ground and whispered, "They are circling us, waiting for the right moment to strike." Daniel glanced at her. "How do you know?" Lyra's lips curved faintly. "Because I was trained to hunt them before I was trained to smile at court." The air shifted. Shadows moved among the glowing trunks. 3 bounty hunters stepped into the clearing, their black armor glinting under the bioluminescent light. They weren't the same ones from the chase. These were slower, heavier, and carried weapons that looked older but more dangerous. The leader removed his helmet, revealing pale skin marked with deep scars. His eyes were sharp, but there was no malice in them, only calculation. "Captain Hale," he said in a voice like gravel, "you have something the galaxy will kill for." Daniel crossed his arms. "I'm guessing you're not talking about my charming personality." The hunter didn't smile. "Your DNA," he said simply. "Compatible with Zelther royal blood at a level not seen in 1,000 years. A perfect union that makes you the most valuable man alive or dead." Lyra stepped forward, her tone sharp. "And you mean to sell him?" The hunter shrugged. Not exactly. Our client doesn't want him harmed, only delivered before tomorrow's binding. They say the ceremony is unnecessary. Daniel frowned. If they don't want the marriage, then what do they want? The hunter's eyes flicked to Lyra. They want the child, princess. They want it raised far from your father's reach, in a place where the emperor has no power. Lyra's expression didn't change, but her voice turned cold. Which faction sent you? The hunter hesitated, then shook his head. Knowing would put you in more danger. Princess, but I will tell you this. Your father is not the only one playing this game. Daniel's stomach tightened. So let me get this straight. The emperor wants me married to Lyra to make a hybrid heir. Your client wants to take the future kid and hide them. And I'm just standing here while everyone plans my love life and my DNA. Lyra's eyes met his. Welcome to my world, she said softly. A rustling in the trees cut the moment short. The first group of bounty hunters from earlier burst into the clearing. Weapons drawn, the air filled with shouted commands in alien tongues. The two groups eyed each other, weapons raised. The leader of the new arrivals snarled. He is ours, step away. The scarred leader didn't flinch. Yours? You couldn't even catch him. The standoff was seconds from erupting into violence. Daniel's pulse pounded. If the hunters fought, someone would grab him in the chaos, maybe both sides. Lyra's voice sliced through the tension. All of you will stand down, she ordered. You think this human is just a prize, but you are blind. His arrival here is no accident, and if you kill each other over him, the one truly pulling the strings will win. Both groups hesitated. The scarred leader lowered his weapon slightly. Then tell us who that is. Princess, Lyra shook her head. Not yet, but I can prove it to you. If we live long enough to reach the palace. Daniel shot her a look. The palace? I thought the plan was to get as far away as possible. Lyra's eyes burned with purpose. Running will not stop this, Captain. If we do not cut out the route, the hunters will keep coming, no matter where we go. The two hunter groups began murmuring among themselves. Finally, the scarred leader spoke. We will give you until the next moonrise. After that, if you are still here, we take him. Lyra nodded once. That is all I need. The hunters faded back into the forest, leaving the clearing empty again. Daniel let out a long breath he didn't realize he'd been holding. You're really planning to walk back into the palace? He said. Lyra's voice was calm. Yes, because the enemy we need to face is not out here. It is sitting on a golden throne. Daniel stared at her for a long moment. For the first time since this began, he realized something. She wasn't just another pawn in this game. She was willing to fight it, and maybe so was he. Asterisk. The journey back to the palace ship began before the twin moons of Veronine had fully risen. Daniel and Lyra left the clearing quietly, the glowing pollen swirling behind them like fading embers. The forest was quieter now, but every rustle made Daniel tense. He knew the hunters were still out there, watching the time they had promised. Lyra led him along a hidden route, moving like someone who had memorized every twist of the terrain. At the forest's edge, the palace ship loomed in the sky like a sleeping giant, its golden hull catching the faint starlight. Daniel frowned. Kind of hard to sneak into something that big, he muttered. Lyra's lips curved faintly. Which is why we will not go in through the front. She guided him to a low ridge where the roots of a massive crystal tree met the edge of the docking spire. Beneath the roots, an old maintenance hatch was barely visible under layers of moss. This leads to the lower resonance chambers, she explained. They are unused now, except by people who prefer not to be seen. The hatch opened with a quiet hiss, revealing a narrow tunnel lit only by faint pulses of blue light in the walls. Daniel followed her inside, the air cool and slightly metallic. The passage twisted and dipped until they reached a large, round chamber. The walls here were covered in strange carvings, alien script mixed with depictions of battles, star systems, and faces Daniel didn't recognize. This was built before the current dynasty, Lyra whispered. Some say it remembers more than the royal archives. They pressed on, emerging at last into a hidden corridor beneath the palace's main halls. Through thin crystal panels in the walls, Daniel could see the preparations above. Banners of gold and crimson hanging from the ceiling. Long tables set for the binding banquet. Hundreds of guests were already gathering, their conversations a low, constant hum. Lyra stopped suddenly, her hand raised. Up ahead, 2 guards stood outside. A tall, ornate door. The guards' eyes glowed faintly, not with natural light, but with something unnatural. Daniel leaned closer. "They're not blinking," he whispered. "No," Lyra said grimly. "They are under the thrall." Daniel had heard rumors of it, a Zelther technique where the mind was bound by an implanted crystal, turning a person into a loyal puppet. The glow in the guard's eyes wasn't just eerie. It was a sign that whoever controlled them could see and hear everything they did. "Your father did this?" Daniel asked quietly. Lyra's jaw tightened. "No. My father would never, not willingly. This is someone else's work." They waited until the guards moved in perfect unison down the hall, their steps too exact to be human or alien. Lyra slipped to the door, placing her palm against the golden seal. The lock shimmered and dissolved, revealing a dark chamber inside. Daniel stepped in and froze. On a throne of black crystal sat the Emperor, tall, regal, but unnervingly still. His eyes glowed faintly, just like the guards. His hands rested on the arms of the throne, his fingers twitching slightly, as if resisting invisible chains. "Father," Lyra said softly. Stepping closer, no response. She reached for his face, and Daniel saw the faint shimmer of a crystal embedded at the base of his neck. "It's worse than I thought," Lyra whispered. "They've bound him completely. He hasn't been ruling for weeks, maybe months." Daniel's mind raced. If he's not in charge, then who's running? "The palace?" Lyra's eyes darkened. "High Priest Varen," she said. "He controls the thrall, and through it, the Emperor. This marriage was never my father's will. It's his." Before Daniel could speak, the sound of footsteps echoed outside the door. Lyra pulled him into the shadows just as the door opened. Varen himself entered, tall, robed in deep crimson, his silver hair gleaming. He walked to the Emperor, placing one hand on the embedded crystal. "You will stand tomorrow and bless the binding," Varen said in a low voice. "It will be done in the presence of the council, and when the trial is over, all will be sealed." Daniel's eyes narrowed. "Trial?" He mouthed to Lyra. She didn't answer, but her hand clenched at her side. Varen turned sharply, as if sensing movement. Daniel held his breath. Then the priest smirked faintly and walked out. The door sealing behind him, Lyra stepped from the shadows, her voice low. "The loophole, Captain, in Zelther law. A binding can be refused if the suitor wins a trial by combat." Daniel's mouth went dry. "So, I fight someone, and if I win, the contract's void?" Lyra nodded. "Yes, but Varen will choose the opponent, and he will make sure it is someone no one has ever beaten." Daniel exhaled slowly. "Well, guess I'll just have to be the first." The arena was not what Daniel expected. It wasn't a ring or a stage. It was a colossal chamber with walls made of living crystal. Above, balconies were filled with alien nobles, soldiers, and the council, their eyes glowing with anticipation. The floor shimmered like black glass, but Daniel could feel faint vibrations under his boots. As if something beneath was moving, Lyra stood at the edge, wearing her ceremonial gown again. But this time her posture was different, tense, worried. She met Daniel's eyes and spoke softly. "Remember, this is not about killing. It is about surviving long enough to win. Victory is claimed by breaking the opponent's crest." Daniel nodded. "Good, because I've never been much of a sword guy," he muttered. A loud horn echoed through the arena. From the far gate emerged his opponent. The crowd roared. It was a towering alien warrior, nearly twice Daniel's height, with armor made of interlocking plates that shimmered like oil on water. In its hand was a massive blade with edges that rippled like liquid. High Priest Varen stood from his balcony seat, his voice amplified through the chamber. By the ancient law of the Zelther Empire, the trial begins. Only one may stand at the end. The warrior moved first, covering the distance between them in seconds. Daniel dove to the side as the blade sliced into the floor, sending sparks into the air. The vibrations under his feet grew stronger. The arena itself reacted to their movements. Sections of the black glass shifted, rising and sinking like the surface of an ocean. Daniel scrambled up one of the higher platforms as the warrior charged again. He couldn't match this thing in strength. He had to think. He remembered Lyra's words about the crest. Scanning quickly, he saw it, a glowing emblem at the center of the warrior's chestplate. Pulsing faintly, the warrior swung again, and Daniel barely ducked under the blade. "Yeah, not getting close that way," he muttered. Instead, he began leading the warrior across the shifting platforms, timing each jump so the alien's heavier weight caused sections to collapse or tilt. The crowd murmured as they realized what he was doing. Daniel was using the arena itself as his weapon. On one sharp tilt, the warrior stumbled. Daniel seized the moment, grabbing a shard of broken crystal from the ground. He hurled it with all his strength. The shard struck just above the crest, cracking the armor. The warrior roared, swinging wildly. Daniel ducked and rolled, sliding down to a lower platform. He needed one more opening. The arena floor shifted again, and Daniel spotted it, a section rising fast beneath the warrior, lifting him high and exposing the cracked crest. Daniel ran, leaping from one moving platform to the next. At the final jump, he landed directly in front of the towering alien. With all his weight, he drove the crystal shard into the crack, shattering the crest. The crowd erupted in gasps. The warrior froze, then stepped back, lowering its blade in surrender. Viren's expression was unreadable, but his eyes narrowed slightly. By law, Daniel had won. Lyra stepped forward, her voice ringing clear. By the trial's end, the binding is void. The human Captain Hale stands as free man. The crowd roared, some in approval, others in outrage. Daniel looked at Lyra. "So, that's it." Lyra's smile was small but genuine. "For the contract, yes. But for the game we're caught in, not even close." They left the arena together, moving quickly through the palace corridors. Servants and guards stepped aside, watching them. With a mix of awe and suspicion, outside the Wayfarer waited, its engines already warm. Daniel glanced back at the Golden Palace. "I have a bad feeling Viren isn't done with us," he said. Lyra's gaze stayed fixed on the stars ahead. "He's not," she replied. "And neither are the ones who wanted the child. They will come, Captain, no matter where we go." As the ship lifted off, a silent transmission blinked onto the console. Daniel opened it. A single line of text glowed in deep red. The prophecy. "Child must still be born, with or without you." The message vanished before he could reply. The Wayfarer disappeared into the starfield, carrying them both toward a future they could neither predict nor escape.